Hi, it's Mo. Welcome back to the property vlog. This week I'm really excited to share a video of a podcast I recorded with Josh Keegan for the Ultimate FD podcast, in which we went through the massive margins that people are missing, and specifically in letting agencies. Josh is a good friend and has been instrumental in supporting our business, taking it from low occupancy, losing money, taking up a lot of time, to high occupancy, highly profitable, highly leveraged business that's now over 95% occupancy. So it was really good to sit down and chat with Josh. And as a quick side note, the Ultimate FD podcast is an amazing resource. There's over 70 episodes now, and whether you want to increase your top line, whether you want to increase your margins, or whether you want to get information on more tax efficient ways to draw money out of your company, it's a really fantastic resource, so definitely go and check it out.
So before we dive in though, obviously we didn't discuss this in the pre-interview call, so I put you on the spot as soon as we say press record. You've obviously got a bit of a monumental...
Have we started?
Yeah, we started. Press record, yeah. This could be edited out, we'll have to see. See how good quality the rest of the podcast is, and if it's good quality, this might get edited out. If it's not, we'll have to just clutch at straws and put this in.
If we need to fill the time.
You're in a weight cut group together, aren't we?
We are, yeah.
How's it going? Like, what do you want to share the audience where you're at? Yeah, Mo's doing bicep curls in the camera. I mean, it's not, no one else can see it, but I can, so that's good.
Oh,
so,
is it not a video podcast? Oh.
We're recording the video, just my own private leisure. But how's the what was the target? Where are you up to, and how's it going?
So I started at to put it in context, I started at 79.3. But I had come off the back of like not a great weekend of eating, and I've got a PT now, and he was basically saying the other day that he put on 2 kilos over the weekend. He's like, it's impossible to put on that much weight, like proper weight, over that short period of time. It's all mostly, if you're eating out, it's mostly like salt, like retaining the water. It's like, because things are salty and then your body just retains the water. So I started at 79.3, and I put quite an aggressive target of being 75 kilos by within 4 weeks, which normally I would say is unrealistic and is setting yourself up for failure. But I knew that I was probably 1.5, maybe a bit more than that, like over on water. So my real weight was probably more like 78-ish. So I was like 3 kilos in 4 weeks is fine. I'm pretty dialed in at the moment. And yeah, so I'm doing all right.
You got a lot of criticism for the target.
I got a lot of heat. I got a bit of heat. I mean, only like supportive heat, I suppose, because it was like people, that don't want me to sort of set myself up for failure. And I didn't have a very good experience before, because I signed up before and then did the National 3 Peaks and did a huge amount of carb loading when you didn't need to, and put on 2 kilos despite burning like 8,000 calories a day.
Carb loading. What I mean, like when we say carb loading, that's not eating a bit of pasta before you go back. I mean, what did your carb loading regime look like?
Basically 10 bags of Haribo and these dextrose tablets that are just pure sugar. So yeah, but I'm doing all right now. So I've got my weight chart up here. If it's not measured, what's the thing? Can't manage what you don't measure. So 79.3, 78.1 yesterday, 77.4 today. So basically down 2 kilos in 2 days, which I knew would happen because of the weekend I had before. So
good for you. And I think, and obviously for people that can't actually see on the camera, you've also got some amazing floor plans behind your head.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us what this is?
Yes, this is a basically an investment property that we are buying just around the corner from where we live. So it's probably going to end up being an SA property. So yeah, we're very, very, very excited about that. We've got a flat that we used to live in London that we rent out, but we don't have any other property in London. Everything else is down in the southwest. So yeah, very, very excited about that.
And let's give the audience a bit of understanding as to kind of who you are, what it is you do. So I mean, we've actually had you on the podcast before. I can't remember off the top of my head which episode it was. But talk a bit about who you are, your journey so far, and obviously we've got a specific topic we're going to talk about today. But maybe give us a bit
Yeah.
of a launch into that.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, not to go back too far, but basically 2010 started investing in property while at uni, myself and my business partner, James, who are friends met at uni. Got our first property, which was an HMO, lived in it, rented a couple of the rooms out, then went to do grad schemes in sort of like 2011, 2012, 2013, etc. Went property full time 2016. So I'd worked at Lloyds Bank and HSBC during that time, doing property on the side, sort of accumulating a couple of HMOs along the way. Property full time in 2016. Started with HMOs, set up a management company for HMOs called Moorview Let, which is now at 370 rooms. We've got about, between us and our JV partners, we own about 60% of the stock as well. And then the rest we manage for other investors. KHP Group is another company we've got, which is a development company specializing in commercial to residential conversions of heritage and listed buildings. And our current project there is a £12 million development of a former private school in Exeter, which is 23 flats and 2 houses. So very excited about that. That'll be, well, the marketing's launched now. We're going to start doing viewings probably in the next few weeks, and the units will be ready end of this year, beginning of next year. So that's cool. And then a couple of other things. We've got the Property Vlog YouTube channel, which is the fastest growing property YouTube channel hosted by me in the UK. So that's we're at about 1,700 subscribers on that now. Don't know how many views, quite a lot, but I'm really enjoying doing that. And I am launching a new business called the HMO Agency Blueprint, which I'm very, very excited about. So sort of taking the experience that we've had with our HMO management company and the fact that a lot of people set up HMO sort of lettings businesses and just don't end up making any money off the back of it, or actually losing money. We're sort of going to take our methodology, the blueprint, and then also the execution to be able to deliver sort of a highly profitable leveraged cash flow business that can generate sort of 40 to 50% net margin, and can be managed in less than a day a week, and sort of pay your salary so you can then go off and do other developments or build property portfolio or do consulting or whatever it is that you want to do. So.
And that's a nice segue as to why I've got you on here today, because obviously we've been talking about this new business and this new opportunity for letting agencies and agency owners to achieve some of what you've achieved with your letting agency. Now, obviously we've worked together for a good few years. I've started, scaled and sold HMO letting agency. You've started and scaled one and you still own it. And having seen behind the scenes of so many different letting agencies, I think most are just over broke at best. Or they're making good money, but the owners are literally working 40, 50 hour a week to sustain them. And I've obviously seen yours, I've seen the journey it's gone on, and it's without a doubt one of the most lucrative letting agencies I've ever seen, if not one of the most lucrative cash flow style businesses I've ever seen. And it's been incredible to kind of see you go from strength to strength and go from basically like kind of low margins, losing money, costing you a lot of time, to like this place where it's like 40, 50 plus 50% net margin plus, kicking out loads of income for you, managing all your portfolio for you, and then you then be able to scale your time down to such a small amount per week where you can even consider launching these new products and doing these big developments that you're doing. So the aim of the game today is to share 5 massive margins that letting agents are missing in their businesses. What are the 5 big things that people are just losing and like basically just not putting in place is costing them an absolute fortune? And this is going to be like a kind of the playbook for letting agents, but also like when we were discussing before what these 5 things are, they just apply to any business really. Like they really do apply to any business, these principles. And it's like these are the keys to lucrative leveraged lifestyle businesses, which is where we're all trying to get to. So do you want to kick us off with number 1? And what we'll do is I'm going to put a bit of time on the clock because we can't spend hours and hours on each one, although we could. And basically what we're going to do is both talk about and just give as much input, as much insight as we can to each one so that somebody can leave this knowing what to do and understanding where the margin is and how they can apply it to their business. So I put 6 minutes on the clock per one, and we will work through the next 5 over the next 35 minutes or so.
Sounds good. Yeah, so number 1 really is trying to get to a place where you're, or we call it cash flow margin. So basically trying to get to a place where you can cover your overheads just on your management fee income. So obviously you've got various different incomes in the lettings business, in an HMO lettings business. You've got management fee income, you've got tenant fine fee income, you might have a maintenance business, you might have other sort of income streams in there. But if you can get to a point where just your management fee income is more than your sort of overheads, and is then also making a margin on that, then everything else after that is sort of like just extra profit. You don't have to worry about covering your day-to-day expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically the kind of concept here is if you've got multiple different streams of income, having your cash flow covered so that your cash flow coming in every single month covers your overheads, makes your margin, means that when you then do a tenant find, you do a maintenance job for somebody, like you don't really have to worry. It's all kind of pure profit coming into the business. And I think the mistake that we see very often is people, when they're kind of stacking, when they're kind of going out to pitch to the market, they're kind of adding up like all of the things that they may be able to charge for, and then looking at that thing as a whole versus what their overheads are. Whereas what we want to do is just make sure your management alone, your one single charge that you do for management fees every month, your core business is already profitable. Then everything else around that really does kind of just add to the bottom line, like this kind of chunky, kind of more lumpy sums of money.
Yeah.
What's the benefit of that?
Well, I was going to say, it's just the great thing about management fee income within a range is it's so predictable, and you want to be, when you know that your costs are going to be predictable every month, like how much you got to pay people, how much you got to pay suppliers, how much your advertising costs, all of those things. You've got your budget, those are going to be the same every month. So how can you operate a business when those are fixed every month if you don't know that you can definitely cover those every month? So the real beauty with the management fee income is within a range, and obviously it depends on occupancy and how expensive the rooms are that you've let and stuff like that. But for us, it's been pretty consistent. Our overheads are 16k, and our management fees are 22. So it's just like, even just on the management fees, there's a 6k margin just on management fees, and then anything over and above that is just profit. So it's just the reliability of that, and you don't want to be in feast and famine. The point of having a cash flow business is that it can pay, it can cover its cost and pay you reliably, so that you can then spend time doing things that are lumpier and are a bit more feast and famine, like developments or longer term equity plays. So I think the reliability is a massive one. You just want to be able to, and we've done it before where we've been, when we've worked together sort of on previous years' budgets, and you set the budget and then you get to the end of the year and you're like, you're within literally a few pounds of what you set, and it's not magic, but it feels like it's a pretty cool feeling when you budget something and then it hits it and you're like, actually that's nice.
How does somebody actually go about creating that margin on management fees alone? So ignoring all the other elements of the business, your tenant fine fees, your maintenance, your kickbacks, and the stuff we're going to talk about in the rest of this podcast. How, just on a pure management fee basis, which is I'm renting I've got one unit to a landlord, it's £500 a month for the rent, and I take £50 per for that every single month. How do we get that to a place where we know what our overheads are and we know there's enough margin being created by the management fees? Like what's the journey to get there?
Well, I think what you've got to go right back to the beginning and look at the business model. And I think one of the problems with most cash flow businesses is they don't actually know how their income's made up and actually where they're spending money. And that's definitely one of the things we did when we went through and looked at our business. It's like, well, actually, do you know what the commercial balance is and how many people you need to service so many rooms, and at what level does that change? So if you have two property managers and they're managing 250 rooms, can they go to 300 before you then need another one, and then you need to sprint to 350 rooms to make sure you can sort of cover their costs as well? So I think going right back to basics and looking at the fundamental business model of but just stripping out all of the other things that are variable costs. So just stripping that, variable income, just stripping that right back and just looking at management fee income, and so almost you work it back from, at this many rooms, I'm going to make this much money. That needs to make, say, you want to make 20, 30, 40, whatever margin it is just on management. It then gives you a budget for how much you can actually spend on overheads. And actually looking at it that way, it's like, right, I've got this pot of money. I need to spend it on advertising. I need to spend it on staff. I need to spend it on office. how am I going to divvy it up? And at the beginning, you can't necessarily reconcile those things, because you're like, right, I'm allowed to spend 16k on overheads, and my overheads are currently like 20. How am I going to make this 20 into 16? And that's the sort of game you got to play.
I think I've seen this in a number of different companies as well. So although this really is applied to letting agencies, if we think about how we apply this to like other businesses, like Ultimate FD is a really good example of this. Or in fact, I won't use Ultimate FD. I'll use my brother-in-law that basically owns a design company, and I was having a conversation with him about the fact that, you know, if you've got clients that are giving you work every single month without fail, keep their prices low, because you know you've got like when I say like, make sure that maybe there's not quite as high margin there, but you want to get them on retainers. You want to be making sure that every single month you've got 500 quid, £1,000, £5,000 coming in through the door, and then the project money is just on top. So make your margin on that kind of that consistent cash flow, and then let the actual money actually come in on top above me on that. Right,
Yeah,
that
is that the timer? I got one last point on that in
Go
terms
on.
of reliability of income.
Go on.
We'll be over time. We'll be here till 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
One of the things that we implemented as well was a sort of sliding scale on our management fee pricing, so that if a landlord signs up for longer, they actually get less. Their management fee is less, and that's just been a game changer, because then it means, rather than like every 6 months, you've got to have a conversation around like, oh, you know, do you want to renew? Are you happy? Is everything all right? You're just locked in. Everyone knows where they stand. You're going to get the income in, and it's reliable. So I think that's another thing. Even like you said, to the detriment of a tiny bit of margin, just to get that reliability and to get it locked in is worthwhile.
It's that kind of concept of trading profit for commitment. So it's like, if we commit to you, can we have a bit more profit, or vice versa? Like, you're going to trade a bit of profit, but you're going to get the commitment. So it's like that long term game. Cool. So that's number one. The second margin, massive margin, people are missing, that basically is probably costing you a fortune if you are a letting agent or any other business. Basically, this does apply, is vertical margins. So vertical margins, what we mean by this is basically thinking about the supply chain, and the fact that you are using suppliers to deliver some of your service. And it could be that your clients are using additional suppliers to deliver services after you. So a good example of this from a letting agency perspective, which works really well for these examples, is you could be using contractors to do maintenance at your landlord's properties. So there's an issue, you reach out to a contractor, they go and fix something at the property. And what you could do is, rather than continue using like different suppliers, you could bring some of those suppliers in-house, and you could do it, and then you get the margin associated with the actual work that's being done there. Have you, obviously I know you've done this successfully, Mo, what would you kind of say about this, and how's that impacted your business?
Yeah, this has been really, really good. It's not a huge part of our business in terms of the size of it compared to the letting business, and it's definitely something that we want to grow. And we've just got one contractor that works with us at the moment. He does like between 3 and 4 days a week, essentially. But I know yours was, I think, slightly bigger than that. But it's fantastic. I think that the sweet spot is, you need to be providing a service that's providing a really good service to the landlords in terms of the maintenance function, and providing it at a rate that's less than the market. So they're really getting some good value from that. The maintenance contractor knows the properties, so they're in our properties all the time. They know our internal processes. They know what the properties are like, and they got some history in terms of what's gone on there at various properties and the refurbs and contacts and stuff like that. So it's just been really, really good. And we've got a way that we consolidate non-urgent jobs onto a list, so that when the contractor goes around to do something urgent, or when the non-urgent jobs are at a sufficient level that they actually just need to be done, they can combine doing 5 or 6 things in one go. And it means that for our current cost of it is £35 plus VAT. So if you look at the market, like to get anyone out to a house in Plymouth is like 50, 60 quid an hour plus VAT just for a call out. So we do it £35 plus VAT. And when they go out, they don't just do one thing. They go in, they do the thing that they've been sent to do, that's on the job list. They also then look at it's called filler jobs. So if there's any filler jobs that have been reported by tenants that aren't urgent, they do those. And then in addition to that, if there's any spare time, so that they've done all of that stuff, it's only taken them 40 minutes, they're booked in for an hour, they'll actually spend the other 20 doing what we call non-urgent filler jobs, which is like another standard list of just anything that will add value to the landlord while they're there. So that might be meter readings, that might be just doing a bit of a brief inspection, visual inspection. It might be a litter pick. It might be a bit of gardening if the landlord isn't signed up to the gardening service. So it's really, really good, and it's great margin. It's great margin for us, but also the key thing is really and to make sure the landlords are happy with it. They got to be getting good value out of it, and the main thing there is getting as much done in that sort of 1 hour slot.
I think there are a few kind of key bits of kind of wisdom or advice here. Once again, just around the mistakes that people can make trying to do this, because this has the potential to be highly, highly lucrative. We were in a place where we had two contractors. We were making like 50-60% margin on it, but still cheaper than the open market. And we had product which equated to 2-3 grand of actual like bottom line profit every month, and that's just straight to the P&L. So it's really great add-on to the business. But there are some real risks to this, because what we do see agencies do at time, or once again, this applies to any company, is they go out and they chase the bottom end of market, or chase the low margins. And what we mean by that is, if your core business, so like the management fees, for example, are operating at 30%, you're then adding on maintenance, etc., which is operating at say 50%. Don't go and start a cleaning company, which is going to be at 10%. Because this is all about blended margins. So it's really make sure like whenever you're considering launching a new product line or something else, or integrating your supply chain and chasing these vertical margins, you need to be really careful over the one you pick. It's really easy to see that opportunity by doing the cleaning yourselves as opposed to outsourcing it. And you can see easy money, like 5 grand a month, or whatever that could look like. But the reality is it's very low margin money, and it's a lot of hassle and hard work, which could easily take your bright eyes off the core business. So just make sure whenever you go into anything that's going to become vertically integrated in your supply chain, you really are going for the chunky, high margin stuff that's going to increase your overall margin, not diminish it.
Yeah, 100%. And you hit the nail on the head when you said like it's just something that looks like, it looks like it could be really lucrative, because you look at how much you spend as a letting agency, as a landlord. You look at how much you spend on cleaning and collect. I can't remember how much it is, but I'm sure we're at like probably 10 grand a month on cleaning across the portfolio. And you're just like, 10 grand a month. But actually the cleaning companies, even the really good ones that have, charge high prices and are really good, sort of have really high quality, a lot of time the owner, the founder, is working in the business. Maybe they're doing quality control, maybe they're doing cleaning themselves, but there isn't loads of margin. There isn't loads of margin in that business. So something to avoid. And a few things I've put down in terms of our experience. So when we started it, I think we didn't really think so much about providing an amazing service, and we knew that we didn't go for like, we're going to charge a premium price and provide a premium service. We were like, we're going to charge a cheap price and provide a cheap service. So what that meant was just getting a contractor on and just sending him around to jobs, right, him or her around to jobs. What we've done over time is we've professionalized that service, and we've then put the price up accordingly. So the landlord's getting more value, and we're obviously charging more as well. So just little things like the contractors there representing our company. So we've got him uniform, right? So actually he goes in and he's actually he's a Moorview Lets part of the team, effectively, even though he's a contractor. We've invested in training for him, and we've actually got a sort of a new standards document that's that he signed up to. So it's like, this is how we do things around here, and it's just making sure there's a consistency of service across the board. And we've invested in quality control as well. So it's actually like the landlord's paying us for a maintenance service. Not only are they getting it below market rate, but also we're going to ensure they get a better service than if they went elsewhere, ended up paying the same or more elsewhere. They're going to get better service. And I think that's the key thing as well. Just having it well thought through, and making sure the service to landlord is top. Otherwise, you won't get repeat business. Even though the landlords have to do maintenance in their property, if you're not providing a good service, they'll just look elsewhere, and that will either be taking the management away from you, or it'll be taking the maintenance away, or whatever. So those are a few top tips from our point of view.
Solid. Right. Number 3. The timer did go off, but I paused it just to not ruin the recording. So
It went off.
it was probably about 30 seconds a minute ago, but it's cool. I think they were good points. So margin number 3. Do you want to share what the margin number 3 is?
Yeah, so margin number 3 is sort of an extension of the previous example, but rather than taking it in-house, it's like horizontal margins and adjacent businesses. So is there other ways that you can monetize relationships that you've got with other suppliers? So one example that we do with this that works really well is this isn't actually a financial one, but it really does benefit us financially. We've got a really good relationship with our broker, and we send loads and loads of business his way, actually to the extent that he ended up starting his own brokerage firm because he was so busy under the previous one, because we were literally just sending him all of our clients and investors and everything, and doing some stuff ourselves as well. So that works really well. We sort of discussed a financial like kickback scheme commission with him on that. But in the end, we just landed on, look, we don't really care about 50 quid, 10 quid, 50 quid, 100 quid here and there. What we want is that when we reach out to you to do a mortgage, to do a refinance, to do a development loan, whatever it is that we need, like we're top of the pile. And actually, when you look at some of the deals that we're doing in KHP and some of the refinances that we do in Moorview as well, there's a really big financial benefit to speed and getting stuff done quickly and getting the best deals and stuff like that. So that's one example of a sort of horizontal margin that we take, but it's not a cash, it's actually sort of like a side benefit. I think you got some examples from your business that you did.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good point, and I think we always want to make sure that the speed and the quality of those providers of service for us is just invaluable. I think where you can create a monetary element there as well, that's absolutely brilliant. So we used to have a preferred supplier scheme, and basically, because like we talked about before, it wasn't always wise to chase all the margins. Like cleaners, for example, like I know I keep talking about it, but I really wouldn't get into running a cleaning business. Like it's even like you said, 10 grand a month, and the margin on that's probably 2.5, and that's with you managing 50 how many cleaners, 5 or 6 cleaners that don't want to work, all sorts of stuff. So what you can do instead is if you don't think it's wise to like move into that marketplace, or like you with a broker, for example, it's like, do you really, you're referring so much business, could you start a brokerage? Well, you probably wouldn't want to. It's probably not good use of your time. It's like, can you create a preferred supplier scheme where you basically say, we are now going to guarantee you all of our cleaning, or give you first refusal over all of our cleaning, all of our gas certs, all of our compliance, all of our mortgage applications that come our way. But what we want is just some commission. And if you think about, people have an issue with this because they worry that it's deceitful, or they worry that it's not fair and it's closed book. And I just really disagree, because I think the point is, you're not charging this to your landlord, your end client, unknowingly. What you are doing is you're charging a supplier for you always for guarantees of business. And it's like, if someone came to me and said, Josh, we're going to refer 100 people to you a year, and you'll always be our preferred supplier for Ultimate FD, would you be willing to pay a commission for that? I say, like, yeah, of course I would. Of course, because I don't have to put marketing and sales in, I don't have to do anything. So all we're doing is we're just basically giving people an opportunity to be our preferred supplier. We've got a level of scale. We can guarantee you 200 gas safety certs a year. If you want our business, all we're saying is, could you please pay us 10% of any of the revenue we give you, or something along those lines. And this, once again, is just a really powerful way of having your cake and eating it, having the margin that you could earn, like less margin that you can earn by starting the business yourself, but still getting some significant margin from just working with people that are really great people to work with, and generally creates this another win-win where they're happy, you're happy, they know they've got the business, you're going to refer them, they're vested in keeping the relationship good and keeping the relationship there. And it's just like this really powerful, like high margin exercise you can add into the business.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the way that it's described as like, effectively that money is coming out of the advertising and marketing budget of the company. So say for UFD, you've got an advertising marketing budget, you need to bring new business in. part of that budget can be, or I'm going to pay commissions to people that send me business, and it's nothing to do with your client that you're charging money to. Obviously, they pay you, and then part of that is your advertising marketing budget for the next year. But I really like that, because I think that makes it a lot cleaner around, like, it's coming out of your pocket, it's not coming out of your sort of client's pocket. I think the challenge, we did look into it for our business. I think the challenge we had is we had quite long established relationships. We had fixed pricing. It was at a time when, I know now, like, prices are all over the place. No one has any clue of what, like, anything costs, what week to week. But it was a time when pricing was, like, very stable. It's like a gas safety certificate's like, whatever it is, 56 plus VAT or 60 plus VAT, whatever it was, and it had been that for 2 years. So it was, the conversations were more difficult, and it was like, well, we're going to have to put our prices up to do that. And then it was like, well, actually, that doesn't serve the purpose that we want to. So potentially we could look at it with any new relationships. And I think that might be the key point around, if you're going into new relationships, whether it's a new cleaning contract or whether it's a new supplier for whatever, that's the point. That's the time to have that conversation, because then it's locked in from the beginning, and it's 100% a supplier cost to bear, not an additional cost to your client. And ideally, you want the price that, so say as the agency, you want the price that your clients pay to still be less than market, and for you to still be able to get and to still get the best service. Like, the win-win-win is they get the best service, they're still paying less than market. In fact, 4 wins. They're getting a cheaper price than the market. They're getting they're getting the best service. The supplier's happy because they're just getting, like, a flood of business, and you're making money on it. Like, if you can make all those things work, which we weren't able to nail, but if you can make all those things work, that's presumably what you had, then just everyone's happy.
It's a bit of a kind of journey thing, and a bit of like economies of scale. Like, when you get to such a size, you've generally got a discounted rate anyway. So all you're doing is taking it back up to, like, the market rate when they've added their commission back on. So it's like, it's just finding a win-win.
Absolutely.
100%, as you said. But if you're having to pay top whack anyway for a supplier that's got no budge or can't afford to pay it, then it doesn't work. But over time, it's kind of getting there.
100%.
Okay, number 4. You could do you want me to launch number 4, or do you want to launch it?
You go.
Cool. So, like, this one, I'd say we made some use of, but nowhere near as much use of as you guys have done, which I think has been incredible to kind of see. And a lot of my kind of clients have been doing this as well, which is basically international margins. And it's basically leveraging the arbitrage of having different people in different countries that want lower rates of pay, which keep your overheads down, your margins high, and keep the productivity and the quality of service very, very high as well. So the virtual assistants in the Philippines, typically, I know you, for example, talk about in a moment your VA kind of army that you've got going for you, as well as, like, one thing we do, and we always have done, is outsource financials to, say, South Africa or a different country as well. So talk to me about that, because obviously you've gone on the journey with that, and, like, is it as hard as people think to get these VAs up and running and trained, or is it really like that magical thing that when they're up and running, it's like, wow, you can't quite believe how much you're paying for this incredible level of service?
So it's definitely amazing, and I would definitely, the businesses that we've got, any future businesses, 100% utilize it, and it really is a really good way to sort of supercharge your margin. It's not easy. It's been a journey, like all this stuff is. We did have one guy who was called Christopher, who we used for some bookkeeping, and he was doing pretty well, and then one day just vanished, and we were like, all right. So we, like, spent loads of time and money training them up, and, like, got all the processes in place, and it's like brilliant, and then it just literally vanished off the face of the earth. So there are challenges. You've got to make sure you've got your security like locked down in terms of bank access and all of those sort of housekeeping things. But fundamentally, it's a way to, like, supercharge your margins. We started in I think 2015, 2016, literally, like, probably our second or third member of the team. I think after James's mum, and after Jen, who was like our first, she started as a contractor and then became an employee. I think after those two, Jeff, who's in the Philippines, was basically our next recruit. And he's grown with the business. We now hire Jeff. We now employ his wife. We've now got 3 of his friends working. And then we've got a couple of other people as well that work for the business. And yeah, it's just amazing. It's we pay them market or above market rate for what that role is paid in the Philippines. We include bonuses. So if we're doing Christmas gifts for the UK team, we'll do gifts out there. If it's like an anniversary of service, we'll do a gift there. And so they're very much part of the team. One of the things, and to give you an idea of sort of financials, I think we're at like, depending on who it is and whether they're part-time or full-time, it's sort of like 250 to like £500 a month typically. So for like part-time to full-time, I think it's like $2 or $3 an hour or something like that we pay. One of the key things we learned, we never, Jeff's a lord, so he's a steel, so he didn't like really want to join the sort of team meetings to start with, and he didn't really need to, because it was just like process driven work and he'd just do the work that was required, and it was amazing. And then as we grew, we never integrated like the Philippines team with the Plymouth team and stuff like that. And actually we got to a point where we were like, this is silly. Like there's so much great information and even just energy and sharing stories and like talking about your families and stuff like that, and kids and all that kind of stuff, that you're missing out on by not having the two parts of the team working together. And since we've done that, so now they join weekly team meetings, QGMs. It's just amazing. So it's really good. If not, there are challenges, and there's always going to be challenges when you can only communicate virtually. You can't, it's not as easy to build rapport straight away. You can't, sometimes there's misunderstandings of communication because you're literally just WhatsApping or emailing. You've got to make sure your processes are crystal clear and stuff like that. But like overall, it's a really, really strong part of our business. So very, very happy with it.
What's been like the thing you've outsourced to them that you've been a bit surprised, that you thought, wow, I never thought we'd be able to give that to them, and they've just kind of taken to it? Is there anything you can think of?
Probably, and this has been one of the biggest game changers for the business as well. Probably like, and this was just, I suppose, a preconception I had, the messaging on, like, instant messaging on Spare Room. So like someone messages, and I just thought, you want the sales exec to do that. They're going to be the ones that meet the person at the viewing, so you want them to do the communication. Like, I'm not sure you can script out like how you go through an initial, conversation on Spare Room and stuff like that. And I was just completely wrong. Like, as soon as we put that in place, our occupancy just like went through the roof, because the game with Spare Room is just how quickly can you reply. So someone will go on looking for a room, they'll message like 4 or 5 different companies or landlords that have got rooms that's sort of within their budget and where they're looking, and probably only the first 1 or first 2 that respond, they get the viewing booked in. So that's been a massive game changer. So now we've got Spare Room answered every day, like on and off 8 to 10 hours a day, and then also 2 hours on a Saturday and 2 hours on a Sunday. So it's just like no one's ever going to have to wait. And then also our sales exec jumps in when she's not out doing viewings and check-ins and stuff, so, and fills in the gaps. So that's been a real game changer, and probably something I had a bit of a preconception that we couldn't do with an outsourced team.
I think that might have been my fault as well, because I think that was something I toyed with, and I thought there's no way we can make that work. So my sense was always let your sales exec do it. So yeah, fair play to you for getting involved. And I think I've seen some like literally people, they've got no offices, they've got 5 or 6 VAs just running their entire portfolio of rent to rent or lettings for them. And I think it really is just how keen you are to make it happen is the only limiting thing. Then how long are you going to pursue and push it forward? But I think, like, if you think about the margins, it's like you're paying what, $3 to $6 an hour versus 12 to 18.
Well, yeah, I mean, so it's probably like, it would be 20 in Plymouth, like a 22, but like an 18 to 22 grand job would be someone that's on like 6 or 7 grand maybe. So it's like, yeah, probably a third of the cost.
Wow.
Just writing some points down. So I think one of the key things in terms of like, can you just be like, right, I'm just going to get rid of everyone and have everyone as VA? And I know it does work for some businesses. For us, there's definitely a balance. Like we've got obviously like contractors come in to get keys. We've got some tenants turn up to the office. We don't have a high street presence, but we're like near the high street. But the office space is just outside off the high street. Yeah, so we definitely have a balance of like sales exec is local. Our finance manager was local, but now she works remotely. We've got two property managers and business manager that work that are in Plymouth as well. So it's worked really well for us, where we have like pretty much 5 UK and 5 or 6 sort of taking into account part-time hours in the Philippines, and just really nailing the communication between those teams as well is key. One thing I was going to mention was around the sales exec thing, because actually, if you think about wealth dynamics, it's not even the same profile of someone that's going to go out and actually do the selling in a room, selling in the room and in the house and talk about all the benefits and be very gregarious. Like that's not the same person that's going to sit down in front of the spare room and be very methodical and go through, right, these are the pre-qualification questions. Have you got any CCJs? How much do you earn? Do you know this is a room in a shared house? All of that, and also keep on top of the messages. Who have I replied to? Who have I not? It's actually a completely different wealth dynamic profile as well. So that's worked really well for us, that we've got like a sort of Blaze that is amazing at doing the sales on the ground. And then we've got sort of, I think she might be a tempo, maybe a steel, just doing the messaging, which is bang on.
Nice. So
yeah,
we've covered 4 massive margins that people are missing, they're leaving on the table, and hopefully everyone that's listening can just understand that. Obviously, we're talking about this from a letting agency perspective, because it's a very complicated, difficult business to run, and most letting agency owners are broke, quite frankly, or just have a business which is costing them a fortune in terms of time. But all of these things just apply to any business, really.
Yeah.
All these principles. So it's like really tuning into the ones that are going to work well for you. Number 5 then is, you want to launch number 5, and then we'll dive into that.
Yeah. So number 5 is sales margins. So specifically around pricing, and also choosing the types of properties that you're sort of going to manage. So I think we have again been on a journey on pricing over time, and probably at one point in time we're just like done the classic thing of what's the market charging, and let's just go slightly less than that, right? And it's like that just ends up being a race to the bottom, and actually you're just saying that, look, I'm the same as everyone else. It's a commoditized service and I'm the cheapest, or I'm like just slightly cheaper, so come and speak to me. And we've definitely been on a journey where we're like, well, actually we're premium, we do high end rooms, and I don't actually think we are the most expensive in the market, but I don't care if we are, and maybe if we're not, maybe we should be, and maybe we should be putting our prices up. So there's the sort of pricing part of it, which I think you're going to talk a bit more about as well. But for us, it's also around, like, fundamentally in a lettings business, management, and any business that's sort of under this model, like management fees are a commission. So when we've got some rooms, sort of the historic rooms in the sort of older portfolio that are like £400 a month, and we're charging say 12%, that's £48 a month for that room. And then we've got some rooms in the portfolio, and actually some of them more than this, but say £900, you make 12% on that, and it's £108. And fundamentally, what you're doing for those sort of 2 rooms is essentially the same work, but probably the landlords and the tenants on the more expensive rooms and the more expensive properties are, the landlords are more invested in the properties. They've spent more on them. They're sort of more commercially minded. And generally speaking, the tenants are also sort of better quality. I know it's a massive generalization, but it does provide a bit of a filter that if you say, look, this is a £900 room versus a £400 room, you're going to get 2 different types of tenants in there.
So I think that's basically charging the right amount, and also by charging the right amount, you also attract the right clients. And it tends to be the clients that pay more tend to be much, much easier clients to work with, or because they value the actual service. I think on this one, I think probably the biggest problem people face or have is trying to not be like the corporates. And I think we see this in lots of industries as well. And obviously, I'm more in kind of the finance space now, and it's like it's really tempting to try to be different from the corporates from a pricing perspective. But oh no, they're just way too expensive. It's got to be cheaper.
Yeah.
Or from a letting agent perspective, and once again, it's just such a good example is when you start a letting agency, you're like, oh well, I never want to be like this company that I can't believe they charge this, then they charge an inventory, then they charge a tenancy fine fee, then they charge for this, then they charge for that. It's like, can't believe they do that. And it's like as you start to go on the journey, you start to look at your P&Ls and you start to look at your performance, you actually realize why they're doing that. It's because without doing that, there's not really much money in this business. It's like you are gonna really struggle to ever make any substantial margins or substantial gains. And then you flip and you start doing it and you realize your clients don't actually really care because they just actually want you to work with a good company. And some do, some fall off the wayside. They go and find somebody else and they find another one-man band that's not making much money, and then eventually they start charging for more, then they keep switching. But a lot of your clients will go on the journey with you, or they'll just expect it for a high performance company. And I think it's like, so if you're going to differentiate yourself, I don't think pricing should be the differentiator unless it's differentiating because it's going to be higher. You should find ways to add values in other ways. And just one of the easiest and the best ways to add value, particularly in the world of lettings and let's say business as a whole, is to charge a premium price, but offer a really premium, responsive, highly communicative premium service. And it's not easy to do. Like that is just not easy to do. But when you hit that sweet spot where it's premium pricing, premium service, that is where you can operate really well because people will just value you, your business, and the service that you offer them. And I think to throw some numbers around, generally what we see kind of HMO management wise, you need to be a minimum of 12% management fee on an average room rate of around £500, 550, and obviously if your room rates are low, it should be slightly higher management fee. But then tenant fine fees is where I see a lot of people slip up because they have this management fee and then they just charge 195 quid for a tenant fine fee. I've done numbers on so many different businesses, so many different structures, so many different setups with VAs, people on the ground, full-time employees, sales executives on commission. And a tenant fine fee, I've not seen to work financially unless it's around £390, which sounds like a lot of money, but that's going to actually allow for about a 40% margin on those tenant fine fees. Now, you could reduce your margin further, but we talked about the fact that if your core business is only 30%, then the other things need to be higher. So I think for me, it's like, as you said, right price, right clients, and also just the way to compete is not on undercharging. The way to compete is charging what you need to charge to make good money from this and actually allow yourself to operate at the right level of quality of service.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, I might send this to our landlords because our tenant fine fees are less than that. So I'll send it around to our landlords and say that Josh said the market is 390. So we charge 250 plus that for 6 months. And if
you're obviously doing something right. You're doing something right. So.
Yeah. And to be honest, the margin still works at that level. But yeah, I mean, when we started, it was 100 quid. In fact, I think when we started, we didn't charge anything. It was just like, well, the management fee just covers tenant fines. It's like, and then we worked with someone and they were like, yeah, it's 100 quid. I think we outsourced some of the tenant fine, and the guy was like, it's 100 quid. So then that was our pricing, 100 quid. And then, over time it's got up to 250, but probably it does need to be more. And I know on flats, I know they don't churn as much, but flats and houses is generally like, what is it, a month? Is it? I think the tenant fine fees on flats and houses is like they charge a whole month.
Yeah, I've seen clients that blows my mind. They've got like rental units where they're being rented out for £1,200, £1,500 a month, and they're charging £700 to £900 for a tenant fine fee on one of them. And it's like every time they do a tenant fine fee, obviously it doesn't happen very often, but they make an absolute fortune on them.
Yeah, and I think it's key what you said about like charge premium prices but offer a premium service, because then people are going to be happy. Because if you charge cheap prices and offer a rubbish service, people are still going to complain about the service, even though you're like charging the cheapest in town. So you want to be premium, and it will provide the same way that having more expensive rooms filters sort of tenants, having a more expensive service and a premium service that you're providing also filters the type of sort of the avatar for landlords that you want to work with and investors you want to work with, and people fundamentally that there's a difference between price and value, right? The price is higher, but you want the people where the value is still there. Is it because they're, they don't live in the area, they do something else, they've got a high paying job that so it's not worth their time to manage their properties themselves. Yeah, they're abroad, they live out of town, those kind of things. Those are the people that will value your service the most. The person that lives around the corner from the HMO will just always be thinking, oh, well, I could just pop around and do that myself. Like, why am I paying £390 for a tenant find? I could do it myself. And that's where you want to find people that will value it. And actually, we've had a big lesson learned from trying to grow the portfolio. So we've grown a lot of the portfolio through refurbs. So we've always had really good stock and people that are prepared to invest in their properties. We went through quite a big expansion of just taking on people with lower quality properties and stuff like that. And actually, the mindset's just totally different. They're used to paying less. They don't want to invest in their properties as much, and they don't value the service as much. So that was sort of, we veered off what our avatar was for sort of investors. So that was a lesson learned as well.
Awesome. So to sum up, cash flow margins, this is all about actually making sure the cash flow element of your business, the core product or service, covers your overheads with a margin on there. Got vertical margins, so it's basically supplying some of your supply chain, and make sure that any supply chain you do bring in-house is generally higher margin than your core business. Horizontal margins, which is all about when you can't bring something in-house or it's lower margin than your core business, you could arrange a kickback or a commission with horizontal suppliers that you work with. International margins, it's taking labor out into different countries and utilizing the fact that labor rates are cheaper in different places, whether that's VAs, finance function, wherever it may look like. And then finally, sales margins, which is all about just making sure you're actually charging pricing that's going to result in and yield you a decent margin within your business, and making sure you're choosing the right clients that are willing to pay the right prices so you can build the right business. Any other final points, Rad, before we finish?
I was just going to say bonus margin, if you want. Bonus, stick around to the end for a bonus. Here it is. I would say technology, automation, AI margin. So sort of a bit of an extension of international margins, but a really, really simple example for us was we use Arthur Online as a property management system. We were doing a load of stuff manually. We paid, I think it was like a couple £100 for like a training day. Someone came down to Plymouth, sat with the team. We went through like all the stuff we were doing. They found loads of different things that we could automate. And it didn't result in us saying, okay, well, we don't need as many staff now, so we can let some staff go. But what it meant is that we could we probably could add 20% extra capacity to the portfolio in terms of we could grow 20% with the current team. So that was really, really nice. So like a bit of an automation margin, technology margin, I think would be a bonus.
Amazing. Love it. That's incredible. I have to say in the intro that they'll stay to them for the bonus margin that I didn't know was coming. But it's a massive point. And it's like, I'm still not quite sure how to get to grips with implementing and utilizing AI. All I know is that, yeah, there's been times where I booked out an hour and a half in my diary to do something that's taken me 20 minutes because I've typed in. I thought, I wonder if ChatGPT can do this. So it's definitely like where we need to be.
Even just like I gave the Arthur Online example, but even just like virtual viewings, I know you were doing this quite a lot before you sold as well. Like just the amount, I think you got quite big numbers on it, but we're probably doing like 10% maybe on virtual, selling on virtual through Matterport, stuff like that, which is, again, is like a preconception thing where I don't think people would agree to a room without seeing it, but the technology is good enough now that they can basically feel like they have seen it. And then obviously you got the margin because you don't have the person going out to do the viewing and the mileage and all of that stuff. So yeah,
it's crazy, isn't it? And as soon as you get into that performance mode where you are right now, like you'll just be finding more and more margins like every day and every week, like implement like marginal gains.
And it just makes it more fun to run the business, and also more fun for the team, because it's like you've got enough, you can then reinvest in the team. You've got enough team so that people don't feel completely overwhelmed and spread too thin. And it's just a nicer environment to work in.
Amazing. So hopefully there's been some value here, and I think obviously we really have tuned in this on a letting agency. Letting agency is a really good example because it's complicated. It's got high overheads. It's a notoriously difficult business to get right, and obviously Mo's kind of cracked the code on that, and now he's launching his is letting you see blueprints help other people do the same thing. Obviously, Mo, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, so I mean Instagram probably. So it's at Jeffrey Hakir, MURAT JEFFREYHAYKIR. Probably need a more catchy Instagram handle, or MUR a better name.
Yeah.
MURAT at moreviewproperty.com, MOORVIEW. But you can link in maybe my details. But if you Google Mo Hakir, there might be like a Murat Hakir, I think is like a famous Turkish like boxer or cage fighter or something, but the second result will be me. So
perfect. Or just reach out to the boxer.
yeah.
So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. I think just before we finish, the kind of final sentence will be, why do this? Like, what are people going to gain by having this lucrative leveraged lettings business? Like, what are people actually going to get out of this that you've kind of seen over the last few years? It's really kind of come together for you.
I think it boils down to earn more, work less, and actually have fun doing it, and have time freedom to be able to do other things. So like I take my son to nursery and pick him up every day, work from home, location freedom. I can, I've got the team, leverage team. I can work from pretty much wherever I want. I choose to work in this room in my house, but I could work abroad if I wanted to. And financial freedom, and it gives you that cash flow base that you can then go off and do other things, whether that's a hobby, charity, whether it's trying to make more money doing other things like developments or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons to do it. Yeah.
Nice. On that note, finish up there. Thank you very much.
So a huge thanks to Josh for having me on the Ultimate FD podcast for a second time. Hope you enjoyed it and you got lots of value out of it. As I said at the beginning of the video, do check out the Ultimate FD podcast. It's an amazing resource. It's available everywhere, and I'll put a link in the description below. And lastly, remember to like the video, share it with anyone you think might get value from it, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and we'll see you on next week's video.